All right, let's dive into some Romantic era literary criticism today.
Sounds good.
We've got excerpts from some seriously fascinating scholarly articles, all about how Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats viewed poetry.
Yeah, these poets, they weren't just writing poems,
They were really redefining what art could be.
Totally. It was like they were asking,
Yeah.
what if poetry wasn't just for the elite?
Right, right.
What if it was for everyone to connect with something deeper, something more meaningful?
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah,
So, are you ready to unpack some of these revolutionary ideas?
absolutely. I'm excited to dig in. The Romantic period was, well, it was a time of massive change, right?
Yeah.
And these poets were right at the heart of it, challenging the old ways of thinking and really kind of creating a whole new path for art.
Okay, so let's start with Wordsworth.
Okay.
This guy, he was all about, like, bringing poetry back down to earth. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He believed that poetry should reflect the real language of men, particularly, the language of everyday people,
Exactly.
especially those living in rural areas.
Like simple language, accessible to everyone.
Yeah, like ditch the fancy jargon.
Yeah.
Make poetry something that everyone can understand and relate to.
Exactly. He really wanted to democratize poetry,
Yeah.
And his approach was completely different from like the stuffy, overly formal poetic styles that were popular in the 18th century.
It was a complete 180, right?
Absolutely. Back then, poetry was all about, elevated language,
Right.
strict rules.
Yeah.
Wordsworth wanted to break free from those constraints
Totally.
and tap into like the raw, authentic voices of the common people.
I can just imagine him, like, strolling through the countryside,
Oh, absolutely.
soaking up the sights and sounds of rural life,
Yeah.
thinking, this is the stuff of poetry. This is it.
Yeah, totally. And it wasn't just about the language either. It was about like the subject matter too. Wordsworth found beauty and meaning in the everyday experiences of, well, of just ordinary people,
Yeah.
the simple joys and sorrows of life
Right.
and the natural world, the ever-changing wonders of nature.
And that's where his famous idea of emotion recollected in tranquility comes in, right?
Yes, exactly. That's it.
He believed that the most powerful poetry came from reflecting on intense emotional experiences,
Yes.
often those inspired by nature, but not necessarily like writing about them in the heat of the moment.
Precisely.
It's more like letting those emotions simmer a bit, right?
Yes, let them settle into your soul, let them kind of, I don't know, marinate for a while.
Yeah, marinate. I love that.
And then when you're in a more tranquil state of mind,
Right.
try to recreate those feelings through the poetry.
So it's not just about, spur of the moment inspiration.
No.
It's about taking the time to process those emotions and then craft them into art.
Exactly. You can see this idea at work in one of his most famous poems.
Which one?
I wandered lonely as a cloud, also known as the Daffodils.
Oh, yeah.
You know that one, right?
Of course. A host
Yeah.
of golden daffodils.
Yes. He comes across a field of daffodils and he's just blown away by their beauty, right?
Right.
But he doesn't write the poem right then and there.
So he waits
Yes.
until later when he can kind of revisit that experience in his mind and allow those emotions to come back up to the surface.
Exactly. He lets those feelings, as he puts it, be recollected in tranquility.
Right.
And that's what gives the poem its power.
Yeah.
It's not just a, pretty description of flowers.
Right.
It's more like a meditation on how nature can spark joy.
Right. And inspire creativity.
Exactly.
But hold on a sec. Even back then, not everyone was on board with Wordsworth's whole rustic language revolution.
Right.
Didn't his good friend Coleridge have some issues with that?
He did.
Oh,
Yeah. Coleridge, although he was very close with Wordsworth, felt that poetry, it needed a more elevated style. Something, a bit more distinct from everyday speech.
So he appreciated the simplicity, the naturalness.
Yes.
But he thought that poetry shouldn't completely abandon the beauty and the music of more formal language.
Exactly.
So even within the Romantic movement,
Yeah.
there was this tension between embracing the everyday and maintaining the special qualities of poetic language.
Yeah.
It's like they were trying to find that balance, that sweet spot
Yeah.
between accessibility and artistry.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it speaks to a debate that's still going on today.
Yeah.
What should poetry sound like?
Right.
Should it use language that everyone understands?
Or should it have its own special vocabulary, its own unique style?
Right.
It's a tough question.
Yeah,
It really gets to the heart of what we value in art.
totally.
Do you find yourself drawn to poetry that uses plain language?
Mm.
Or do you appreciate a more distinct kind of poetic style?
That's a really interesting question, actually. It really makes you think about your own preferences as a reader.
But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's shift gears a bit and talk about another romantic heavyweight, Percy Bysshe Shelley.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about Shelley.
I mean, A Defense of Poetry is basically a passionate manifesto
It is.
for the power of poetry, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And you know what?
Right.
He wrote it in response to someone who actually called poetry useless.
Useless.
Yeah. Can you believe that?
Oh, I bet Shelley had something to say about that.
You bet he did. He was not happy about it.
I can imagine.
Shelley truly believed that poetry is, well, it's the ultimate expression of imagination.
Uh-huh.
And he saw imagination as the most important human faculty.
Wow.
Yeah, he really did. To him, imagination, it allows us to connect to something much bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, something beyond that everyday world.
Something beyond the logic, beyond the reason.
Exactly. It's like a doorway to a realm of profound beauty and truth.
So he was basically saying that poetry isn't just pretty words. It's like this key that unlocks
Yes.
the deepest mysteries of the universe.
You got it.
That's amazing.
He saw poetry as much, much more than just entertainment or just a way to express emotions.
Yeah.
For Shelley, poetry was a force for positive change.
Really?
Yeah. In society and politics even.
Wow.
Something that could awaken the human spirit, you know?
Yeah.
Inspire people to create a better world.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, really powerful stuff.
And speaking of shaking things up, didn't Shelley kind of go head-to-head with one of history's most famous philosophers?
He did, in his defense of poetry.
Who are we talking about here?
I'm talking about Plato.
Oh, wow. Plato. Okay.
The guy who famously banned poets from his ideal republic.
Yeah, I remember that.
So how do you think Shelley, a passionate defender of poetry, responded to that?
Well, if he was as fiery as they say,
Oh, he was.
I bet he didn't just sit back and take it.
He did not. Shelley's response was bold, to say the least.
Okay, tell me more.
He actually used Plato's own ideas against him.
What? How did he do that?
He agreed with Plato's concept of ideal forms.
Okay.
But he argued that poetry, fueled by imagination, could bring us closer to those forms than, say, logic or reason ever could.
So he's saying poetry isn't an illusion, it's actually a pathway to a higher reality.
Yes, exactly.
Like he completely flipped the script on Plato.
He did. He turned Plato's argument on its head.
And used it to champion the power of poetry.
Exactly. And it gets even more fascinating when you consider how Shelley's ideas connect to Aristotle's concept of catharsis.
Now, catharsis, remind me, what's that all about again?
Catharsis is the idea that experiencing powerful emotions through art, especially through tragedy, can actually have a purifying effect on us.
Like a release valve.
Yes, exactly. A release valve for all those pent-up feelings, you know?
Right.
And Shelley, he believed that poetry could evoke these intense emotions.
Yeah.
And through catharsis could lead to a kind of emotional and moral cleansing.
It's like art as therapy. Centuries before therapy was a thing.
Exactly. So both Shelley and Aristotle were saying that art, it's not just about entertainment.
It can have a much deeper impact.
Yeah, a profound impact on our inner lives.
It could engage our emotions, challenge our beliefs, and maybe even make us better people.
I think they would say so, yes.
That's amazing.
It's like they're saying art can help us become the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, I love that.
It's really quite profound when you think about it.
It is. These romantic poets were way ahead of their time in recognizing that transformative power of art.
Yeah, they really were.
But let's not forget about another giant of the Romantic era.
Right.
Who also had some pretty profound ideas about poetry and art.
Yes, of course.
John Keats.
John Keats.
Ah, Keats, the poet of beauty.
Yes, the poet of beauty and sensual experience.
He wasn't just a brilliant poet, though, was he?
No, he wasn't.
He also had some really deep insights into how poetry should work.
Absolutely. You know, while Wordsworth and Shelley, they wrote these long, elaborate essays about their theories of poetry.
Right.
Keats, he expressed his ideas in a more subtle way, you know?
Oh, really?
Through his letters and really through his poems themselves.
Interesting.
But those ideas, they're just as powerful, just as insightful.
Yeah.
And perhaps his most intriguing concept is, well, what he called negative capability.
Negative capability.
Yeah, I know. It
Sounds a little cryptic.
It does, right?
It's not exactly a term you hear every day.
No, you don't.
But what does it actually mean?
Well, at its core, negative capability, it's about embracing uncertainty and ambiguity in art.
Okay, so being okay with Not having all the answers.
Yes, letting things be a little messy, a little unresolved.
That's pretty radical, especially for a time when, people were really looking for certainty and order in the world.
Yeah, it really was.
So was Keats saying that we shouldn't try to force resolution in art
I think so, yes.
to allow for mystery, for multiple interpretations?
Yeah, exactly. Keats believed that the greatest poets, especially, well, his idol, Shakespeare,
Yeah.
could hold conflicting ideas or emotions in their minds
Yeah.
without needing to resolve them into a neat and tidy conclusion.
So it's about allowing for that sense of wonder that you wouldn't get if everything was, spelled out for you.
Yes, exactly.
And doesn't this kind of tie into his famous line from Ode on a Grecian Urn?
It does, yeah.
Beauty is truth. Truth, beauty.
Yes, absolutely. You see, for Keats, beauty wasn't just about, pleasing aesthetics. It was deeply connected to truth.
Mm-hmm.
He believed that great poetry didn't need to, hit you over the head with a moral message.
Right.
The experience of beauty itself, the way it makes us feel and think, that was a form of truth.
It's like he's saying, don't overthink it. Just let the beauty wash over you and trust that there's truth embedded within it.
Yes. He had a deep faith in the power of art to reveal truth through beauty, through emotion, through contemplation. He wasn't interested in poetry that preached or moralized.
Yeah.
He wanted poetry that immersed you in a sensory experience, that made you feel something.
Yeah.
That left you, pondering those big questions about life and art.
What's really fascinating, and maybe even a bit ironic, is that Keats, this champion of beauty,
Yeah.
he was absolutely savaged by critics during his lifetime.
He was. Can you believe that?
I mean, you'd think a poet who celebrates beauty would be, universally loved.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the critics of his time just didn't get him.
Why not? What do they say?
They found his poetry too emotional,
Uh-huh.
too focused on the senses.
Really?
Yeah, they missed the depth, the intellectual richness,
Yeah.
the profound insights that were hidden beneath the surface beauty of his work.
It's like, it makes you wonder how many other brilliant artists have been overlooked or misunderstood
Yeah.
because they dared to challenge the norms,
I know. It's a great reminder to keep an open mind when experiencing art. And to be willing to, to look beyond the surface, to find the true beauty and meaning in a work.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to that tension we were talking about earlier, that tension between artistic vision and public perception.
Right.
Sometimes it takes the world a while to catch up to a truly innovative artist.
It does.
But the beautiful thing is, even centuries later,
Yes.
we're still engaging with these romantic poets. We're still wrestling with their ideas and finding new meaning in their work.
Absolutely.
That's really a testament to the enduring power of their vision, wouldn't you say?
I think so, yeah.
And the universality of the questions they were asking.
Exactly. So I guess the big question is, what can we learn from these three romantic giants? Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats.
Yeah. What makes their ideas so relevant even today?
Well, I think one of the most important things they did was to expand our understanding of what poetry could be.
Right.
They challenged the rules, blurred the lines between, high art and low art.
Yeah.
And they championed the importance of imagination, emotion, beauty, in a way that honestly it still resonates with us today.
They weren't just writing poems. They were reinventing the whole purpose of art itself.
You got it.
Yeah.
They believed that poetry could be a source of profound truth,
Yeah.
a force for positive change,
Right.
a way to connect with something bigger than ourselves,
Uh-huh.
and a way to experience the world in all its, complexity and wonder.
And they did all of this while creating some of the most beautiful and enduring poetry in the English language.
It's true.
It's amazing to think that these poets, writing over 200 years ago, are still so relevant today.
Yeah, they really
Their ideas continue to challenge us, inspire us to think differently about art,
Yeah,
about the world, about ourselves even.
absolutely. They really do.
It's incredible, really.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is remarkable how their words still speak to us across the centuries, you
Yeah.
know? It makes you wonder.
Ooh, I love a what if. What are you thinking?
Well, if these romantic poets could, I don't know, time travel to our world today,
Right.
this world that's overflowing with digital content, with all this online stuff,
Yeah.
what do you think they would consider true poetry in the 21st century?
That is a fascinating question. I mean, imagine Wordsworth scrolling through Instagram or Keats trying to make sense of TikTok.
It's almost too much to imagine.
It is. It's mind-boggling.
But on a serious note, I think they would be captivated by the new ways that people are expressing themselves online.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like, think about things like visual poetry
Oh, yeah.
or those spoken word performances that people share on social media.
Uh,
All these creative ways that technology is being used to, push the boundaries of language and form.
I mean, yeah, these were poets who challenged the status quo.
Exactly.
They weren't afraid to experiment, to break the rules.
They were pioneers.
Yeah.
They were true innovators.
So you think they'd be drawn to that innovative spirit that you see online?
I think so, yeah.
But, I don't know, part of me also wonders if they might be a little overwhelmed,
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, just by the sheer volume of content that's out there.
I can see that.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with information.
It's true.
It's hard to sift through it all and find those truly meaningful pieces of art.
Yeah, you're right. It can be really overwhelming.
And think about Wordsworth, with his emphasis on emotion recollected in tranquility.
Yes.
And Shelley, who believed in the power of, deep thought and contemplation.
Right.
Do you think they would be able to find that in our modern world?
I don't know. That's a good question.
With our obsession with instant gratification.
Yeah.
The constant need to be connected, to be entertained.
It's true. It's a very different world from the one they knew.
It is.
I mean, remember, they valued taking the time to truly absorb experiences.
Right, to let those emotions sink in,
Yes.
to really resonate within their souls. It's hard to achieve that kind of tranquility when you're constantly being pinged with notifications.
Right. I know, it's true. It's hard to escape the noise sometimes.
It is. It really is.
But maybe they would also recognize that even in this crazy, chaotic digital landscape,
Yeah.
poetry can still offer those moments of reflection, of connection that we crave as humans.
Like maybe a powerful poem that you stumble across online
Yes.
can cut through all the noise.
It can.
Make you stop, make you think, make you feel something real.
Absolutely. I think they would challenge us to be more discerning,
Discerning.
Yeah, to be more discerning consumers of art.
Okay, so not just passively consuming everything that comes our way.
Exactly. To be more active, more intentional about the art we choose to engage with.
To seek out those works that really speak to us.
Yes, the ones that resonate with our deepest selves.
That make us think, that make us feel, that make us question.
Yes. And maybe, just maybe, they would even inspire us to create those pockets of tranquility in our own lives.
I like that.
To carve out space for that kind of deep engagement with art that they valued so much.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
To step back from the constant stream of information, the demands on our attention.
Right, to create those spaces where we can truly connect with art and allow it to work its magic.
Exactly.
It's like they're whispering to us from across the centuries.
I love that image.
Reminding us that true poetry, in whatever form it takes,
Yes.
has the power to lift our spirits.
To expand our minds.
To connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
It's a powerful message, and I think it's one that feels especially relevant today.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think how these romantic poets might view our modern world,
It really is. And, this whole deep dive, it's got me thinking. I want to go back and revisit some of my favorite romantic poems.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
There's something about their work that feels, I don't know, timeless,
Yeah.
but also incredibly relevant to our lives today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on something really important earlier.
Yeah. What was that?
That whole idea of finding those pockets of tranquility in our lives.
Right. Those spaces where we can really, truly connect with art.
Yes. And let it work its magic on us.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Oh, I know. It's so true.
To let the constant stream of information and demands just drown out those quieter moments. Those moments of contemplation, of reflection.
Yes.
But those moments, they're so crucial.
They are. They really are.
They're where we recharge,
Yeah.
Where we connect with our deeper selves.
And where we open ourselves up to new ideas.
To new perspectives.
Exactly. And I think that's something the Romantic poets, they really understood that,
Yeah.
They understood the importance of solitude,
Mm-hmm.
of being in nature.
Of letting the mind wander.
Yes. Of making those unexpected connections.
They knew that true creativity, well, it often comes from those quiet spaces.
Mm.
It does. Where we can, step back from the noise of the world
All right.
and just listen to those whispers,
Yes.
the whispers of our own hearts.
Our imaginations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's one of the biggest lessons we can take from them.
I think so.
Even as we navigate this, fast-paced, technology-driven world that we live in.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
It's a reminder that we have the power to create those pockets of tranquility,
We do.
to carve out time for reading,
For contemplation.
for just being present,
Yeah, for simply being.
and appreciating the beauty around us.
That's it. That's it.
It's about making that conscious effort to cultivate those inner spaces
Yes.
where creativity and imagination can flourish.
Beautifully said. And I think that really resonates, you know?
Yeah.
It resonates with the spirit of Romanticism,
How so?
that belief in the power of the individual
Mm-hmm.
to connect with something larger than themselves,
Yeah.
to find meaning and purpose in a world that can often feel, yes, chaotic and overwhelming.
It's about trusting our intuition,
Yes.
bracing our emotions.
And allowing ourselves to be moved by the beauty and wonder of the world around us.
It's been amazing exploring the ideas of these romantic giants with you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Wordsworth, Shelley, Keats.
Such powerful voices.
They might have lived in a different time, but their words, their vision,
Yeah.
it continues to speak to us, even today.
Across the centuries.
And as we wrap up our deep dive, I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I'm feeling a sense of awe,
Mm,
inspiration,
I feel it too.
a renewed appreciation for the power of poetry,
Absolutely.
and a deep desire to seek out those pockets of tranquility in my own life.
I think that's the perfect takeaway from this conversation.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. I hope that's something our listeners will take away as well.
I hope so too.
That sense of wonder, that appreciation for art, and that desire to cultivate those inner spaces.
Yes, those spaces where creativity and imagination can thrive.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of romantic literary criticism.
We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive.
We encourage you to keep exploring the world of poetry and art, both from the past.
And the present moment.
Keep those imaginations firing, and until next time, happy reading.
Happy reading, everyone.